Welcome to Citizens Forum. Today we're going to be having several guests here that we're going to be interviewing. But before that, we're going to have a chat here with the co-host today, who's Mazen Al Nahawi. Mazen is from Syria, and he's referred to himself as being a Palestinian Syrian. And it's always has sort of intrigued me about the definitions, and also it's starts us thinking about a lot of things about the region. So welcome, Mazen. Good to see you today.
Thanks, Walter.
And that's going to be my first question for you today. If you were trying to explain the Syria of today and how they've got into this situation, I think you firstly have to explain what it is to be a Palestinian.
Or to be more specific here, I would say from the city of Safad, the province of Palestine, the country of Syria, an Arab human. So this is, and you go from the small to the bigger
Right.
circle. So in the end, we are all a human in the end. But as if you say, if you are from New York, for example, and you say you are New Yorkian, they say, or from American, this is the same thing. Palestine always been a province or an organic part belonged to Syria. And if we go back to read in history, like if we go back to Herodotus, the father of history, since early documentation of our human history, he always talked about Palestine as the southern part of Syria, which connected with Egypt. So always Palestine connected with Syria. So that's why they are one country from a long time ago.
Right.
Now, if we talk about the last 100 years in our modern history, which does not represent from the Syrian history maybe even 1%, then we have that division and the border, which created mainly by the Western colonial intervention.
And what date did that happen?
This has been exactly in 1916. When you talk about writing down paper, Sykes-Picot, it's an agreement between England and France.
And that's when the Syrian borders were actually defined.
This is when the original Syria started to be cut to pieces.
Oh, okay.
It used to be under the Ottoman Empire, all as one, like it used to be the province of Jerusalem, the province of Damascus. So they were all one kind of country where somebody living in Damascus can move freely to any area in natural Syria, what we call. But in 1916, especially after the collapse, or when the France and England planned for the after Ottoman era, because they used to call it the sick man empire, I think.
Yeah.
So that territories, France and England, they were working about dividing it between them. Russia was part of that agreement, and all of them involved in a region based on religion issue. Like, for example, the Russians were the protector of the Orthodox, and so by using, and France protecting the Druze. So they tried to go inside by protecting a small minority,
right,
and to have a presence there. And Russia was the protector of the Orthodox at that time, supposed to be, so supposed to have a control over Jerusalem.
Okay, for instance, so like now it appears that Syria has a close alliance with Russia, or is that still the case?
This is kind of come in a different era when the Soviet Union established, and then we have the solidarity between Soviet Union and all these countries who faced what we call colonialism and later post-colonialism.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, at that time, plus Russia was the Tsar in Russia, who was grandson of Victoria, Queen Victoria, and the cousin for the Kaiser of Germany. So you are talking about the elite royal European dominating all these countries and later bring them to
So Syria is seen as being a colony, more or less.
And it was a very important strategic location for Syria, because especially after the era of discovering the oil.
Yeah.
So it's very important. So France and England divided Syria to 4 pieces.
Yeah.
What we know now as Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Jordan. Now in 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution happened, and the Soviet Union opened their archive for the foreign ministry, and then we knew about Sykes-Picot Agreement because it was a secret. The Guardian published it at that time immediately. But in 1917 also there was another catastrophe for us, something called Balfour Declaration. And Balfour Declaration was to give Palestine to European Jews to have as a homeland for them.
Now, who was Balfour?
Balfour was the prime minister, the foreign minister of Britain at that time, and he delivered what they call Balfour Declaration to the Zionist movement to give them Palestine as a homeland. Now that not because they love Jews or no, actually Britain, as we know later, while the Holocaust going on, they closed their door.
That's right.
But it was to create a buffer state in the region, cannot really be organically there with the rest, and to create always a trouble, and in that way, Britain would dominate the region through that buffer state. So that was the original reason for that.
Okay, so the sketch out for me though, like in Syria, modern day Syria, what sort of political parties are there? Are there elections? What role does the president play? Is it sort of like the United States? And also, what's of curiosity is we see a lot of refugees coming from Syria, highly educated and professionals, many, and now they're fulfilling those roles in other countries, which is it's a great loss for Syria. So, kind of sketch out for me what the society is shaped like. Starting out with the elections, how are leaders chosen?
After the independence, we call that the post-colonial era. For anybody, we have the Ba'ath Party in control in Syria. After many coups, in the end, the Ba'ath Party got in control. And by the way, many of these coups were manipulated by the CIA and the American from the time of Eisenhower. They wanted to topple.
Now, the Ba'ath Party, is it like, what's the associations does it have?
It is a socialist nationalist party.
Okay.
So they talk about socialism. They were under the protection of the Soviet Union later. Like, for example, I paid a £25 tuition for my school, which equal to 25 cents.
Right.
When the government paid for me at least a couple $1,000 during that year.
Yeah.
Health is free.
So what type of healthcare system do they have in Syria, or did have? Was it?
It's completely free. You can
and it was modernized.
Everything owned by the state.
Yeah.
And so that your people income mainly little low, but the major issue has been covered.
Yeah.
So
like, if you obviously get a diploma in Syria, but post-secondary education, is it also free?
As I mentioned, I paid only 25 cents. It's symbolic fee for university study. So yes, it is free. And again, the issue, for sure, we have a dictatorship there. We have Hafez al-Assad for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, and this is not only in Syria. Look to all these states who so-called liberated from the colonial system. Most of them end up with a dictatorship, mainly do the bidding for the old colonialists.
Yeah.
Instead of the colonialists exist physically on the ground, you have now a government either try to compete with this foreign intervention, so always boxed like in the case of Syria, or play nice with them and let them come to their market, do everything what they want to.
Yeah.
So this is the category between the states, in the post-colonial era, what we call.
So what's the name of the president of Syria?
Hafez al-Assad and his Assad, yes. And
okay.
He's the father of the new president, so it's kind of funny.
Okay.
But at least he is he's an eye doctor, by the way.
Yeah.
I prefer dealing with Bashar al-Assad than dealing with the fundamentalist Wahhabi come in Syria to tell me you either agree with this book or I will be cutting your head. Again, we have a secular state in Syria for a long time, and this setback, it's mainly again for the intervention from state like Britain, U.S. and France.
Do you find that the Syria's relationship with the Soviet Union has given it, um, let's say, protection from Western powers? Do you think that happens that way?
Yes, but they had no other option actually. But
Yeah,
and for the Soviet Union also, it was beneficial for both sides.
yeah,
Mainly when you are surrounding the Soviet Union, then that's why Syria. It's actually the same equation right now. The road to Russia will be coming through Syria, then Iran, then Russia. So
yeah.
the same equation now we have, that Russia standing up with Syria because they know it's in the end, they are the target in the end.
Yeah. Now, let's just, because we're going to run out of time very quickly, and there's so many different forces acting on the region, particularly this new development of ISIS, which we talked on the show many times. It's a very curious organization. How do you view ISIS, and what do you think the long-term results of ISIS is going to be? Is ISIS going to fundamentally change the region and in the power structures?
I think if you want to know about so-called ISIS, you need to go and ask the Western government about them because they are the one who created the ground for a group like that to be established later. And again, Isis is the name of an Egyptian goddess. So imagine if they were called the Islamic Battalion Movement, whatever.
Yeah.
IBM? No, they are Western. No, IBM is already taken here for copyrights. But ISIS belong. Nobody care about.
It's a pretty good
ISIS.
brand. Yeah.
That tell you how much respect to the history, and that history, by the way, doesn't really belong to Egypt. It's belong to all of us. Again, we are all one family.
Yeah.
And we are related. So, but again, the East seem like it's just a savage, barbaric, Muslim.
So how would you see, for instance, like the Russians came into Syria with a big bombing campaign, really bombed the heck out, apparently, of ISIS in many areas, and get up close to the border to Turkey. Turkey responded, remember, with shooting down a Russian fighter and all that. Do you find that perhaps Turkey is cooperating a little more with the West, and perhaps maybe actually even fostering some of this dissent and training ISIS militants in their own country?
When we say Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the Israeli apartheid, Egypt, all these countries are in a bucket in the U.S. They are in a little bucket in the US. So Turkey on its own does not do a thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing cooked by state like US and Britain.
Yeah.
To destabilize the region for many, again, the target is Russia, it's pipeline gas going through Syria, Iran and Iraq. They need to control that region. Unfortunately, what happened in Tunisia and Egypt kind of was a little bit surprise for them in spite of
the Arab Spring, you mean?
Yes, but later that so-called Arab Spring was used by this Western government to finish all business with states like Libya, Syria, using the name of human rights. If really they care about the human rights, I will start with Saudi Arabia or the Israeli apartheid, who doesn't allow somebody like me even to fly over the land my family lived for 500 years there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the human right been always used whenever to squeeze government, doesn't work with the American policies.
Yeah.
And again, Saudi Arabia need to be on the list there. But as you see, Saudi Arabia participating in that campaign, Canada sell weapon to Saudi Arabia. This weapon, many of it go to so-called ISIL or ISIS. And if you look to the map, you will see the Islamic State, whatever it's called, it's a short line from northeast to southwest. Just a short line. It's cutting Syria.
Yeah.
In the middle, diagonal.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I think a lot of the news stories that we see about Syria and about the Middle East, they're always out of context. We really don't know very much about the region, other than there's a lot of upset and turmoil. So I think it's just a little bit of an education for us today. Thank you very much, Mazen, for talking about this. Now, coming up, we're going to have Norm Ryder is going to be interviewing Sharon Noble about all the wonderful things about smart meters, which are very few actually. Also, I'll be interviewing David Mariner from Fairbrook, Canada, as well as Dermot Travis, who's the Executive Director of Integrity BC.